Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Warframe guide. This time we're looking at the new frame that's come out with Fortuna, Garuda, the mistress of blades, fine-looking skins, and sass, apparently. Now, before I get into this, I'd like to point out my social medias and everything else, which are linked in the description below. If you feel like following my social medias, please do follow those links. There will also be a link to a 1000 Platinum Gleam giveaway down there as well. So, let's move on and take a look at Garuda. So, initially, right off the bat, Garuda's passive is the less health Garuda has, the more damage she inflicts. This will appear as a buff up near your health bar, and you can then self-propagate that through your abilities, which we'll explain later. Garuda also has an extra benefit of gaining her own blade when you do not have a melee weapon equipped. So if we equip a melee weapon, you'll use the dual karma. If you do not equip a melee weapon, you'll gain access to Garuda's talons, which are, for the most part, a status weapon, although you can go with a nice hybrid build if you wish, to sort of play with it as the way you would any other weapon of that type. Something to keep in mind is that Garuda's blades do scale onto some of your abilities, which we'll explain later. Garuda's Dread Mirror. This is a two-part ability. The first part is a leap. Garuda will leap towards an enemy that is in your general direction and then land upon them. Any enemy within 30 meters can be targeted. It will inflict a small amount of damage and instantly kill the target if they're below 35%. That is if they're below 35% before the Dread Mirror was cast initially. The distance you travel with the jump is affected by your ability range. However, there is nothing that will affect the actual instant kill of the ability. So if you drop the enemy below 35% health, and then you jump them, they are instantly killed. Once Garuda strikes the enemy, she will summon the orb above her head, which is the life force of the enemy you attacked. This will last for 18 seconds. All incoming damage or melee attacks onto the shield you generate will then convert the damage into a percentage of energy which is stored within the orb. The multiplier is 0.75% of the incoming damage, and that does get multiplied by power strength. 10% of the victim's energy that is leapt onto as well is also then converted into energy for the orb as well. So the more times you leap onto an enemy, the more energy you're going to drain. When you hold down your 1, it will then charge this orb, and the longer you charge this for, the more energy you drain until you've generated 50% of the initial energy the orb had. Stacking up to as much as the power strength will then tailor to. Once released, it will then launch a mighty blast, and based on the amount of energy you've stored, will deal damage based on that. Ability duration affects the length of the mirror. The damage capture multiplier is affected by power strength. The health to shield is not affected, and it does cause stagger as well once the enemy is hit by them if they're not flung away completely. And the explosion of the actual orb as well. It is much larger on the initial impact, and it deals 50% of the initial damage to anything outside of the initial impact zone as well. So the initial target will always take more damage, and then everything around it will take stagger damage and then be inflicted with 50 to 75% of the initial damage as well, radiating out to about 8 to 12 yards. Blood Altar is Garuda's second ability. Blood Altar causes Garuda to leap to an enemy within 30 yards, impaling them onto an altar for 15 seconds. The enemy is invulnerable to incoming damage and are completely disabled. The enemy then loses 1% of their max health per second. The Blood Altar then emits an aura within a 5-yard radius. When Garuda and her allies within this aura, the blood flows from the victim, restoring 20% of the victim's health as health per second to wounded allies. This is extremely useful for team play and can be very useful with range mods to increase the radius of the aura. The altar duration is affected by duration, and health per second is somewhat affected by power strength. Pressing the 2 again on the enemy afflicted will cause the enemy to descend, and the actual dash distance is also affected by range as well. Garuda's 3 is Bloodletting. Bloodletting is a very simple ability. You sacrifice 50% of your overall health pool to regenerate energy over time. The energy is 25 to 28% of the overall health sacrificed over 3 seconds. Adding mods like Vitality to increase your health pool will thusly give you more health to sacrifice, thus increasing your energy regeneration. Very simple ability, nothing to it. Mods don't generally affect anything on this, so just sacrifice health, get energy. Garuda's 4 is Seeking Talons. To activate the Seeking Talons, you press 4, and this will summon an optic which expands the longer your number 4 is held. Once released, enemies that are within the designated area of your optic are targeted for attack. Any enemy targeted will then have a talon sent in their direction. which doesn't get blocked by objects or enemies, so it is a guaranteed projectile that will hit them. Once hit, they will bleed for a small percentile of their health, as well as taking bleeding damage and be stammered for 1.5 to 2.5 seconds. The percentage of health lost is based on power strength. Enemies affected by the spines also then allow any weapon you wield to deal guaranteed slash damage as well. The range of this is not affected by ability range. The damage of the bleed is affected by power strength, and the stun is not affected by duration either. So this is just a guaranteed stun with extra slash damage on your weapon you have equipped at the time of usage. The actual rate in which the optic grows is also affected by natural talent, so you can make this grow much quicker by using cast speed mods. Something else to also think about with her 4 is that any enemies designated by the 4 then take bonus damage from her other abilities. So it's something to work in synergy with her 4 between the 1 and then everything else she does. Let's have a quick look at these builds. So as it stands, Garuda is extremely new, so builds are kind of on the flow. There's a few things you can try and do with her. As it stands, we did some research on stream, and these are the sort of things that we've sort of found that she's pretty good at. She's got a lot of damage potential, but she also has some support potential. So it depends on how you want to play her. This build that you're seeing right now is sort of prioritized more towards power strength, so that your 1 stacks its energy much quicker. As you build more power strength, the energy you turn into bonus stacks on your blood mirror it increases much more exponentially. So this is focused on power strength, transient fortitude for that power strength. You don't really need to build duration because her 2 lasts quite a long time as well. The main thing you want to keep an eye on is not reducing your range, because you need to make use of your dash abilities with your 1 and your 2. So power strength is the key thing here that will allow your bleed to hit for more, as well as causing your 1 to be your priority. Power strength is most certainly going to make your 1 much more stronger than your 4, but your 1 and your 4 is your priority with this. So you've got Transient Fortitude, Intensify, Augur Secret, and Power Drift to add to the power strength. Streamline to make it slightly more efficient to cast more abilities on the fly. Natural Talent is what allows you to cast your 4 much quicker to make the optic grow larger. Vitality is there to give you a much larger health pool, so if you want to sacrifice some health to gain some extra energy back, then you can do that as well. Alternatively, you can also use any of the other health mods as well. Having Vigor on there in place of maybe Augur Secrets, or potentially even Flow could be quite useful as well. Depends how if you want to have that extra bit of energy regeneration, because then you're obviously going to use that in conjunction with the 2 and 3 to be sacrificing energy to regenerate with her 2. But this is sort of more of a DPS build. Something we found is that it doesn't scale tremendously well unless you have modded your Garuda's blades quite well. As the damage that your 4 does deal is somewhat based on how you've modded Garuda's talons. But that is something more for another video. Just let it known that your modding for Garuda's talons does somewhat affect your 4 in that manner. And the second build we have, this is more of a support role. We're looking at about the same, a little bit less power strength, but more range. This in turn will allow the aura of your 2 to affect a much large area, which in turn will obviously allow players to get in there quicker, to allow them to regenerate health, to keep you alive a bit easier. Not to mention as well is that also then means that your dash with your 1 and your 2 will be much longer, giving you much more maneuverability around an area. The sort of main mods to look for this, again, Speed Drift takes the place of Natural Talent, but you could sacrifice Augur Secrets for that instead. But the way we found this worked out is that Speed Drift, because you're not going to be casting your 4 as much with this build, this still works out quite nicely. So we went with Speed Drift to make the cast speed a little bit quicker. Then we went for a bit of power strength just to get a bit more power out of her 1. And then the duration, the range is there for the maneuverability, whilst also making your aura as wide as possible. The thing to bear in mind as well is that Arcane Avenger and Arcane Fury are quite useful for this. They can quite helpful with your Garuda's talons to then work in conjunction with her other abilities. Alright, so let's take a quick look at Garuda's playstyle very quickly. So Garuda has a very interesting playstyle. You're going to be jumping between using your 1 to jump onto targets to build up the stack of energy on your orb. You're going to be using your 2 to impale targets to keep regenerating your health, whilst using your 3 to sacrifice overall health to regenerate energy. So every time you activate your 2 to regenerate health, you'll then want to activate your 3 to make sure you're topped off for energy. With having flow equipped, you're very likely going to be using your 3 quite frequently to top your energy off. And then when there are large amounts of energies within the area, you are going to be using your 4 to mark these targets and hopefully charge it to full so that the entire area can then be affected. You'll be launching your spines in order to momentarily stun and then deal bleed damage, allowing you to deal bonus damage with your primary weapon. So these enemies over here, for example, target them, shoot off the spine, deal damage with the slash damage. I'm down on energy, so I'm going to use my 3 once to generate some energy. Jump in, spine the enemy so I generate health, use my 3 again to keep generating more energy. And it's sort of a rinse and repeat procedure, really. You go between using your 1 and your 2 initially to generate the energy, use your 3 when low on energy to regenerate health, and then when you feel like you have built up enough stacks, you can then hold down your 1 and kill almost everything within a 8 to 12 yard radius, depending on how you build. Something to mention that I forgot to mention in the ability itself, the 1's radius on the explosion is proportionally based on your range. Building range isn't going to make the radius of the explosion too much bigger, but it definitely does help. So with a support build, this radius of this is going to be quite nice. Imagine Equinox's main, for example. This is kind of how Garuda's 1 kind of plays out. The more damage you take to the orb, the bigger this orb is going to be. The more powerful it's going to be. So, really, in summary, Garuda is a fantastic new frame, and I truly love what they've done with her. She is very fascinating. She's sort of like a really interesting mixture between Valkit and Inari's with energy regeneration, health regeneration, and just an insane amount of DPS with also added elements of just some very unique playstyles of her own. So, I hope this video has been useful to you. I am now going to K-drive my way out of this situation, and hopefully, guys, you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like, share it to your friends, make sure you subscribe if you can, maybe press the bell button if you feel like it, and hopefully I'll see all of you top hatters in the next video. Ta-ra!